In Greek mythology, Centaur is a wild horse with the upper body of a human. In Italian tech tree, Centauro is a vehicle with a wild mobility and the firepower of a tank destroyer. Centauro has almost everything you can find on usual tanks of similar battle rating. You can expect its firepower to be on the same level, and it also has many devices or features that are useful for high tier tanks, though in some cases it even exceeds the expectations. But let's not put the cart in front of a horse and talk about the main vehicle's difference first, its wild mobility. When vehicle's name has a reference to horses, it's not surprising that it has very good weight to horsepower ratio. Though just like for every wheeled vehicle, a lot depends on a surface. Soft terrain, like sand or snow, will not allow you to fully benefit from all that horsepower, but you won't be at disadvantage either. On medium terrain, Centauro can easily reach around 50 kph, which is enough to outperform almost every tank with tracks. And on roads, where the wheeled vehicles show the best results, the only thing preventing you from reaching speeds of over 100 km per hour will be the size of a map. Needless to say, but I will say that anyway, a high speed makes it a very good flanker. In many cases, at the beginning of a match, you will be able to open fire at opponents who are not expecting to meet anyone so soon. But you should keep in mind one thing that makes it different from all other fast vehicles. Very often, those are relatively small and can easily hide behind bushes. If you plan to use the same tactics with Centauro, hold your horses. This vehicle is one of the longest in the game. And here comes the main disadvantage of wheels. You need a lot of space to turn the vehicle. One of the longest vehicles that cannot turn on the spot will certainly face difficulties navigating between buildings. On the other hand, you don't always need to turn the hull around, since your reverse speed is over 40 kph. Some slower tanks can struggle to reach that even when they go forward. But wheels can be an advantage as well. Centauro has 8 wheels. Why does the quantity matter? Because losing a couple of them will have no significant effects. Yes, depending on the amount of destroyed wheels, the vehicle will become slower and harder to control, but that is not even close to what happens with the usual tanks. All they can do is spin around the broken track, while this vehicle can keep moving and start repairs only after reaching a safe place. Since fast vehicles like this one moves around the map more, they often unexpectedly run into opponents. This is when Centauro's fully stabilized gun makes all the difference. That's especially helpful considering that vehicle's battle rating sometimes allows it to meet tanks without stabilizers. It's even more likely to meet tanks without thermal sights, giving you one more advantage. In gunner view, it will allow you to spot opponents easier, especially those hiding behind bushes. Furthermore, you don't need to work like a horse to unlock it. As soon as you buy the vehicle, thermals can be chosen as a first research, so you will have it at the very beginning. Of course, getting parts modification should be prioritized anyway, but we won't look a gift horse in the mouth. Laser rangefinder is another device that makes your fire more effective. It very quickly measures the distance over 4 kilometers away, making very distant engagements easy. And again, not every opponent you will meet in battles will have access even to basic rangefinder. The choice of the best shell will depend on situation and has a lot to do with how you noticed an opponent. The default APDS projectile has up to 300 mm of penetration. While it's enough to damage most of the opponents, sloped armor will significantly reduce the penetration, making it unreliable against heavy tanks, Soviet ones in particular. But this is the only shell that can go through obstacles. So if you spotted an opponent hiding behind bushes using a thermal sight, this will be the best round. Otherwise, it's better to use heat. Muzzle velocity is a bit slower, but instead it has more penetration at any range, and it's still very effective when facing sloped armor. Basically, you can expect it to penetrate any part of a tank, unless it has reactive or composite armor, which doesn't happen very often at Centauro's battle rating. HESH deals great damage to soft targets, but 105mm round is not big enough to offer reliable penetration against all opponents. And its muzzle velocity is only slightly more than 700 meters per second, which is much slower than what you need to play comfortably in high tiers. So I prefer to use only previous 2 rounds. They still can hull break light vehicles, and even if post-penetration damage is not very big, Centauro's relatively short reload time of 6.7 seconds allows you to shoot repeatedly before opponent's crew replacement is complete, so APDS or heat round is the safest way to go. Situation is very different when rounds are flying the other way, into this vehicle. Its armor is only 15 to 40 mm. Every SPAA can penetrate it. While Centauro has a lot of empty space that in theory could lead to projectiles going through it without dealing damage, bigger shells will still trigger the hull break mechanics. So basically, armor protects only against machine guns and nearby explosion fragments. Even hiding thin armor behind hills is not an option. When gun's depression is only 6 degrees, that in addition to vehicle's long hull limits places you can hide even more, which makes single use of smokescreen or smoke rounds one of the most reliable ways to hide. Elevation of 16 degrees is less than most of the tanks have, but usually enough to engage tanks and even low-flying air targets. In arcade, your high maximum speed allows you to get somewhere very quickly, but that's questionable advantage as most of the tanks become relatively fast, and even if you get somewhere no one expects you to be, opponents will know about that thanks to name tags. That same thing makes your thermal view pretty much pointless. Survivability is also very low. Even planes can easily destroy the vehicle with machine guns, while tanks usually hull break you. And you don't have enough guns depression to play hull down and stay relatively safe, so every time you attack someone, there is a good chance that it will be your last attack. And not necessarily successful, as your post-penetration damage is too small to make one-shot kills in arcade. The only really useful thing left is stabilizer, because players are more likely to take heavy tanks into this game mode, and most of such vehicles' cannons are not stabilized. While for you, stabilizer allows to peek out, shoot and hide back without stopping, minimizing your time in the open. Overall, Centauro becomes more of a support vehicle that stays behind allies, scouts everyone around, repairs or uses airstrikes. Otherwise, in arcade, it gets destroyed very fast. In all game modes, Centauro must stay undetected to survive. It has no armor and big vehicle is difficult to hide. But offensive gameplay is its strong side. The gun is similar to usual tanks. Additionally, the vehicle has stabilizer, rangefinder and thermal sight, which is not on every vehicle at these battle ratings. And of course, the mobility is the main advantage. While a lot depends on what kind of map you are playing on, mobility will help you both offensively when you flank and defensively when you was detected and need to change position immediately. I would rate the vehicle 7 thermal images out of 10. At the expense of being destroyed very easily, Centauro can quickly deliver that same destruction to others when it gets behind enemy lines. Fast Italian tanks don't always have to be so big. What about being small and having twice more firepower? Then you might be interested in R3 with two 106mm cannons in top left corner. Or maybe YouTube knows better and in bottom left it will offer something personalized for you. In any case, if you watched the video until this point, which is almost the end, and you are still not subscribed, get off your high horse and do that.